Okay, perfect. Hi everyone, good morning. Thanks for joining. I hope my screen is visible. Okay, I
Yes.
hope it. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so yeah, yesterday mainly we were discussing regarding how an application works when it comes to let's just say read-only wrap-based endpoints that we may generate, right? And maybe we also understood something regarding the what kind of relationship we should establish when we define any sort of a business object. That's what we are focusing on primarily. Okay, so let's just go through a bit of a recap. So as a part of last session, what we did is we came up with a problem
Sumit,
statement.
sorry to disturb, but screen is not visible for me.
Okay, how about others?
Oh, we can see though. Yeah.
So I hope you can see the Eclipse screen right now, ADT.
No, actually, I'm in
Okay,
team screen only.
We,
maybe. Okay, so let's say I'll try resharing the screen, but it seems maybe there is some network issue because others can see, so could be some network issue from your end. But I just reshared, so let me know once
yeah,
it's
we can see the eclipse now. Yeah.
okay. Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah, so last session we came up with a problem statement to understand the terminology, the flow, how the application ideally works, right? So what we understood is the moment we say we would like to generate a wrap-based service, we should be quite clear about the modeling of it, the business object modeling of it, right? And that's where we understood that uh, out of the VDM concept, different layering of the views which are there, we will be using that. So the first one that we understood is that for all the tables that we do have, we have to encapsulate it within interface view. So we are not interacting with that particular table directly going forward. So we created an interface views. Okay, so for example, we created interface view for travel, created interface view for booking. Now, both this view that we created with the term define view entity. We never created anything which defines whether someone is root, someone is parent, someone is child. Those relationships are not established on the interface view layers. Then comes into picture the views which are specific to wrap. Okay, and there we understood and there we created the R views. So R view and C view are more application specific, or I can say wrap BO, business object specific views. What we defined over here is, for example, I'm creating a particular root view entity over here. And why I define a root? Because my travel is the main object around which my application is going to revolve. So I'll say travel is going to be the route for me, and my single travel can have n number of bookings. That's where we define a composition called booking as well. Okay, okay. Now, while we define composition called booking, we also have to create a R view for booking. That's where we defined it. In the root view, what we did is in the root view, we define composition keyword, whereas in the child view of it, we define the navigation, or I can say the relationship of it to the parent. I can say it as an association to parent. In the parent view, we'll define on condition over here, which says okay how the data is going to get filtered when you say for this travel, I would like to see what all bookings has been created. That's how we ideally do it. Post which we define a some set of a consumption view. So for that, we define a consumption view for travel, plus we define consumption view for booking. We call this consumption view also as a projection view. Why we call it as a projection view? Because here, rather than specifying that it is going to be a select from, we will be writing it as projection on. That's how we define it. Same for all the set of consumption view that you create. Okay. Now, once after doing that, unlike in your R view where you have specified composition and association to parent towards the top, here we have the relationship already established. So rather than association and composition, we would be specifying redirection. So we'll be saying redirected to composition child or redirected to the parent. So whatever is the role of that particular node, that's what we'll be specifying. Okay. Now, after doing that, we define the scope of our application in two steps. We tried exposing just travel. We understood, okay, it's the travel that's going to get exposed, post which we also exposed booking, and we understood that booking also become part of my scope. We tried creating a service binding and we previewed the application. We understood that, okay, our application will be previewed. It will have some set of a data, and maybe this is how it is going to look alike. In order for us to have this default UI design, for example, the table columns, the filters, the global search, we define the UI behavior of it by means of a metadata extension. When I say metadata extension, ideally we'll define metadata extension only on the consumption view layer, that is on the C view. I can say the views which are going to get exposed and consumed into the service. As a part of which we define certain header info, some global search things, some let's just say UI annotation to create a table column, and the selection field. We also uh, consume two kind of facets: identification reference and the field group reference. Okay, and we also converted our value help into some sort of an interval. Okay, maybe the one issue that we were facing over here is we were not able to navigate to the object page, even though we have those header facets design. Maybe it's because of the version of UI onto which we are, it has some glitch. Okay, so let's just try to overcome this by a real end user means. So it seems we are on 1.117.5, which might have some glitch, because of which, if you see, even if I click on this, I am expecting some backend call to get triggered, some navigation call should be there so that my data can be retrieved and object page can get open. But here that's not happening. Okay, so what instead we can do? Now, one thing is quite clear that definitely my end user is not going to have a ADT install. He is not going to go in preview. All he cares about is his up and running application. Let's just go via an end user's perspective, end user's approach. Okay, what we'll do is in our BTP account, on our BTP account, you will see that the runtime over here, okay, we'll have different services available. The moment you create your first trial account, you will see a business application studio automatically available. If that's not there, what you can do is you can simply go in your service marketplace, and in the application and development anyway, you will find this business application studio. That's what you can just simply create a subscription for. Okay, I have already created that. That's the reason you won't see the create button over here. But I think in your default trial account, as you also which you create, you will also get this automatically subscribed. Okay, so I'll just open this business application studio over here. And what we are planning to do is, rather than just focusing on, let's just say how the preview works, rather we'll just consume it directly onto the Fury. Deployment and everything we'll consider towards the end. But first, let's just also understand how we can simply go ahead and consume the service that we created. And then we'll see, okay, how the application looks alike by considering the changes, the ongoing development that we do have. Okay. Now, you can create a dev space if you're opening this for the very first time. At the point in time, you can have only two dev space. So if you have already created something, you can go ahead with that. Those who want to create, you can simply say, the moment you click on create dev space, this is how you are going to see the screen. You will get a list of predefined plugins. You are going to get list of additional plugins as well. You can simply choose the plugins that you want. You can go with a Fury dev space, a type of a dev space called SAP Fury, which will help you define a freestyle or Fury element based application. I'll just go back. The moment you do have that, you will see it will be in a starting shape. If you not, if it stops in state like me, you can just simply click on this play button. The moment you do that, it will open that particular dev space in a running mode, and then you can use it. So I'll just start this particular dev space, and we'll see how my Fury can consume the wrap based service that we have created, so that we can see the behavioral changes the moment we perform any of those operation, any of those changes on my backend side. Okay, so I'll just start with this. Maybe I guess it's starting. The moment it's in running, you will see this name getting converted into a hyperlink. Okay, now it's see. Okay, so you have to create a SAP Fiori dev space. I'll just click on this. Okay, so we have different ways with the help of which you can create a Fiori project. Anyway, many of you would anyway be working as a full stack developer, so you would be anyway knowing that. So you can say either new project from template, or maybe I'll just simply say, I'll just go over here in, let's just say, click on triple line, view, command palette, and just simply search for Fiori application generator. You will find this Fiori application generator. Okay, that's what you can search for. It will show you a number of templates. At the same point in time, the thing that we would like to connect, okay, over here, as you can see, my ABAP environment over here, is having its connection with the Cloud Foundry runtime. So the one more step that you will also need is click on this triple line, go into the terminal over here, click on new terminal, and then just say CF login. You have to log in on your Cloud Foundry. If your API endpoint over here is also empty, you would be prompted for it, and then you can get that particular endpoint from here, which is you can go in your sub account, go in the overview of it. Okay, the moment you go in overview, you will see this particular endpoint. You can just simply copy this, okay, and paste it if prompted for. So if you are doing it for the very first time, you will find this particular thing empty. You have to paste it. So that's what I did, and that's why you are able to see the exact same endpoint over here for me. Then I have to log in over here in my let's just say Cloud Foundry CF login. I'll just log in with my credential. Okay. The moment you do that, it will say that, okay, your authentication has been performed and you are now connected. You can just clear, or let's just say if you want, you can also close this. Now I'll create an application. I'll just create a list report page over here. Go next. Okay, then you have to select the data source. I'll just simply say connect to the system. And you can select on to the ABAP environment. You would like to connect to ABAP environment for SAP BTP. It will try to connect. Many a time you might also observe that you might have to do it twice, because in trial account there was many a time it crashes. Here you can see the name of your ABAP environment that you would have configured. For example, the name of the ABAP environment that I have configured is ABAP environment, the one which exactly is being shown. It can be anything based on how you have named it. For example, this one, right? So I'll just select this, and then you have to then you will get the list of services which are available. Now, which all services you will be able to get? First, which are available publicly, right? So you all understood that there is a public cloud. So whatever services are deployed onto public cloud will be there. But if any services are secured, for example, if I am developing a service, it will be quite secure to me. Same way, anything which is defined, or I can say generated by an individual and not made public, okay, those services you won't be able to see. So you will see a list of a kind of a huge list of services, because there is a sandbox system offered by SAP in the form of a BTP trial. So you will see many services already available, out of which what we should be focusing on, what we should be looking for is this particular service. The one which you see after SAP OPU OData, this is the name ZJF UI Travel V2. That's what we should be looking for. So we got this, and I'll just simply say ZJF, right? So you see ZJF UI Travel V2. Okay, and here I'll be able to see the travel V2 underscore 2 is something which I also created. That's the reason that's also visible. I'll just click on this. I'll just go next. Now, what is the main entity on which my whole application will be working? I'll say travel is the main entity for me. Other one is to what navigation it should also be connected to. So these are the navigation to booking and to overall status. I'm interested in going to booking. So you see the same drop down. I'll just say to booking, go next. And I can name anything. So for example, I'll just simply say my UI rep project. I'll just simply say manage travel, copy, and I'll just simply add the same thing into description as well. So this is a place where it will create my project. Now it says source system version is this. Now we also found that there is some glitch over here. So let's just change the version. Let me just make it 120.0. Some short of a .0. I feel it's a stable version. I'll just go ahead with that. In future, if you would like to go with the deployment, we can also create some deployment configuration as well. And if you would like to in future create some tile, you can also prepare some Fiori Launchpad configuration. These are not mandatory. You can go ahead and change them as well. Or if you want, you can just have it like I did. Okay, so whether you would like to deploy it onto a ABAP repository or let's just say some sort of a cloud foundry, it totally depends on your use case. So maybe I guess that's the one which we'll anyway have the discussion towards the end of our sessions where we'll be proceeding toward deployment. For now, let's just choose cloud foundry. We would like it to be deployed on the cloud foundry. Okay, and maybe the destination over here we don't want anyone. Okay, so I guess there is a destination on which my service would anyway be selected, and I'll just simply say manage app router. Yeah, I'll just go with yes. Now, last thing is I'm trying to work on my travel application, so I'll just simply say my wrap travel, and I'll just simply say manage. For example, I'll just name it. Okay, I'll just simply say wrap v2 finish. So it will generate my project. I see it getting generated there, right? So it's installing the dependency. Once it's done, we should be able to view this project over here. Now, ideally, UI project is not our focus. Why we choose to come over here first is because the navigation in the let's just say preview environment, the UI version was, it seems it was not quite stable. That's the reason we were not able to perform certain thing. You're not able to navigate to the detail page and all. That's the reason. It will open this particular application info. If you want, you can preview from here. Else just close this and assume you don't have anything ready yet, but you have just a project over here. I'll just right click on my web app folder preview application and I'll just simply say start Fiori run. Okay, so it loaded my managed travel application. I'll click on go. I can see an application getting loaded. I'll click on this and I see an object page also getting loaded. So if there was some issue in the UI version of that particular local preview environment, doesn't matter. That's not my end user's final consumption object. That's just meant for a developer's preview. We can go via Fiori application in that case. So now, by now, what we achieved is we achieved a global search, filtering, certain dates. And if I click on this, I also see that the facets that we created over here in my CDS metadata extension, I have created a general information facet, which is a collection which contains internally basic data and admin data, both of them. And that's what I also see over here. Basic data and admin data, the fields which I mentioned, that's what I can see over here as well. I may also be interested in viewing the relevant travel detail as well. That's what I can proceed to add as well. Anyone has any doubts till now? No? Okay, perfect. I'll just go back to my ADT screen again. Now I would like to um, let's just say add a table section for me. So there is a general information facet I see, which was ultimately giving me the header information. Now I would also be interested in adding some sort of a line item information. Okay, so I'll add one more facet over here. Add it a comma. Okay, and let's just add this. Okay, now what we'll do is I'll just simply say ID. Let's just say ID, and we would like to create a table for items called bookings. I'll just say bookings facet. Okay, and we'll add it at the position called 20, because the first one over here is a collection which is 10. Another one is what it should be pointing to, or I can say what it should show. I'll just say target element. If you see, earlier we had used target qualifier because we would like to club certain data. Here we know the final element that we would like to show is nothing but my final bookings. So you will see underscore bookings over here. That's what I'll point it to. We can give some labels to this. I'll just simply say labels my bookings. Now, other thing over here is that when I say I would like to create a table, we know it should have some sort of a line item defined, then only it will create a table. So what I'll do is I'll just define the type of it over here with underscore hash line item reference. Okay, so it will create it as a line item. I'll just activate this. Yeah, as we have not defined certain things which are required on booking consumption view, we may not see a ready-made table, but let's see what all things we are able to see on UI. Okay, so I'll just go back over here. Let me just refresh the screen. Okay, so you see, I have not touched my UI project that I created once. That's in a standalone running state. The moment I change anything onto the backend, my UI is also showing those things. It's like a backend developer just started. It's just took its first step towards a full stack development. Good for him, right? Now, when I say I'm in a bookings, I can see some sort of a table visible. I can click on this setting and I can also see a list of columns. But that's not how I want my user to use it, isn't it? Rather, I would like my user to directly be able to consume, or I can say directly be able to see the set of columns that he or she might be willing to. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just simply go over here and maybe, okay, I'll just simply go over here and create some sort of a metadata extension for my booking. I just went ahead and on right clicking of my C view, I'll just say new metadata extension. Okay, and I'll just simply say over here, new metadata extension. Let me just give the name of it to this one. Okay, and I'll just say consumption view. Sorry, it's a metadata extension. Yeah, MDE for my booking. I'll just simply say annotate entity. Okay, so we just got this field, and now we know what is a layer, so we'll go with a partner here. And now what we'll also need is we need some sort of a set of field. I'll just simply say insert all the element that I have. I don't want anything like this because I'm not going to use it anyway. But here at all these lines, we would like some sort of a columns to appear. For example, we can choose what to show and what not to. I'll just add this one at all the lines. Okay, let's just say we don't want some admin data. I'll just comment this out and I'll just simply say source code format. Okay, and now what does it say? Okay, it says that you have missed one annotation metadata.allow extension. I'll go over here and add this. Maybe just copy it without inverted comma or leave it. I'll just type it out. Okay, I'll just simply say metadata.allow extension true. Okay, after doing that, let's just go back, do a syntax check. Oh, maybe did we activated this? It's under activation. Now it did. Let me just say, do a syntax check. It seems good, but I have to change the position 10, 20, 30. Likewise, and let me just add all this thing. If you miss some number in between, that's okay. All it does is it uh, arrange the columns in a short sequence. That's all it does. I'll just simply say activate this. Okay, and now let's just go ahead and refresh. Okay, so here we see a table also appearing. It says that okay, for this one, for this travel, this is the data. But as I'm already in the context of travel, does it really make sense for me to show the travel over here? Not really, right? So let me just get rid of this. I'll just simply say I don't want this. By default, if someone requests, just show it. I'll just comment this out.
We don't have something called hidden equal to true, Sumit?
We have, but the idea is we are keeping it in case user would like to show the data from personalization. If you add it
Oh,
in the UI.hidden, what would happen is in the setting that won't be visible.
okay, got it.
So that's there. So definitely all the UI annotation that was there, I guess the same set of annotation we also do have in backend. That's the reason we never used it on the last change it as well, right? Okay, so we can see this information and now I'll just go back and I can see those information for any other record as well. So this ultimately considers that for a read-only application, those records, everything that we are working on should be visible without us writing any single line of ABAP code. It's totally CDS and metadata driven. You will feel as if you are working on the same normal CDS views by using OData publish, but at that point in time as well, you might have to go ahead and let's just say combine those views, correlate them, and multiple extra things were there, and those things were not quite manageable compared to when you go with a wrap. It's bit manageable, I can say. But additionally, when you go ahead and try to define the transactional capability, then wrap becomes much handy. That's what we are now proceeding towards. But before that, anyone has any doubt on this read-only capability that we discuss? Okay, seems
Yeah,
we
Sumit,
all.
one question.
Yeah, Vijay. Yeah.
Okay, where do we find this list of annotations we have? I mean, which we can use in CDS views? Is there any?
Uh, yeah. So that's what I'll be sharing that particular link the when which I mentioned. That's there available, and maybe you should be able to view that in the SAP UI5 HANA documentation. It's just I um okay, let's just see if I can search for it.
I found some shortcuts are you can do control end space. I mean space. Get all the
Yeah,
list of annotations.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
will show you for sure. But the idea is
All
what is the purpose? So for example, here I am okay, yeah. Here's what you can search for. Go in SAP UFI HANA on demand, go in a list report, for example, right? And you will see that okay, list report element and everything is listed. For example, I would like to go with list report. I'm interested in how my filters can be visible, right? This filter bar. I'll click on this. The moment you click on this, it will show, okay, if you would like to design it on the UI side, on the XML, this is how you write it. if you would like to do the same thing on ABAP CDS, which is nothing but your wrap, you can go ahead and write this UI.selection field like this, and you will be able to. Here, currently we are using entity, so yours will be annotated entity, but you will be using UI.selection field like we did. Same, and for the cap, if you are doing, those are also documented. And most of the things are given on a mouse over. You would like to create a filter bar, you would like to create a table. Many of the things are listed quite easily over here. Same goes for object page element. If you would like to define as object page header, some sort of a header facet, and some sort of object page sections, how you can define that, the set of table, footer, action toolbar, all those things are defined. You can refer this. I'll just ping this particular thing into the chat. Okay. Okay, perfect. So this is how you will be able to figure that out. And many a time what happens is, why we are referring to the standard documentation is in case something changes, something evolves, right? So definitely when you have a reference to the standard documentation, you will be able to easily navigate through it. That's the idea. Okay, now let's just move towards the next thing. So the next thing that we might be focusing on is a transactional capability that we start discussing, right? Here what we see is that I don't have any of the operation for, let's just say, create, update, delete. Even if I just go over here, I can see the read only stuff. I don't have something which which I can edit the record or perform any actions, right? If I would like to call it in real term manage travel, which manages my travel and not only display it, what I am supposed to do. So maybe the one which we were talking about, right? Is the one. So we said that we have a CDS data model and the projection. On the data model layer, we added some sort of a behavior, right? So we created a behavior. What we did is, so here we see the behavior that we created maybe in the last session. What we did is, in order for us to create this, we just right click on my R view, which is nothing but my travel view, and ensure that there is a root view. I'll just right click on this, and maybe then I said create a behavior definition. We also understood that the moment I go ahead and create a behavior definition, the name of it will be exactly matching with my root view. So how many behavior definition I can have in my application? One, because in my application in total I can have only one root view entity. Name should also match. It means I cannot have duplicate behaviors over here. Technically, that's not possible. On a non-root view entity, I cannot create a behavior definition. Rather, that will be part of the actual behavior definition created by the means of the defined behavior for blocks created within this particular behavior definition. It will create this particular blocks for all the root entity. I can say one root entity and all the composition it has. Okay. It won't create any behaviors for any associations that you specified. The same thing we observed for the overall status that we exposed as a, I can say, association rather than a composition, right? That's what we also understood. But even after doing all this, did we really get the correct capabilities over here? Not really, right? We don't see it, because as you can see, the two-step over here says that anything you define on the designing side, anything you define onto the data model preparation side are just the definitions. If you say I would like to expose something, you have to always project those. It's same for the CDS view, like we created anything on the R view won't be visible to anyone, but the moment you expose anything onto the C view or the projection view, then only it will be visible. Same goes with the behavior. Okay. Now let's just go back and understand the behavior first, one by one, so that at least we'll be able to understand each of the chunk what it has to say. Okay. Now, first it says that we are going with a manage aspects over here. So how system decided that we'll be going with a manage? How system decided that we'll be going with a manage aspects over here? when we created this particular one, so for example, for travel it exists, for booking it will fail, but at least I'll be able to show you that option. You see this implementation type that we selected over here, that was manage, and that's the reason system understood that, okay, we would like to go with a managed rep implementation. Okay, now during the manage rep implementation, it says manage implementation, but in case there are certain ABAP layer logic that you might end up writing, where will you write it? So for that, it gives me a class called behavior implementation class. Okay, the name of it will also be quite let's just say common. You will see that the ZJFR travel. So removing the initial namespace, which is your Z, and adding it with this particular BP over here, it will always create your implementation class. You can very well go ahead and alter or rename it, but this is a default name it will come up with. Okay, and this should be unique. It means you should not be using the same behavior class across multiple objects. Other than that, if we'll be seeing what all things we do have within this particular one, that's the second thing, but let's just navigate through this screen first. It says the strictness. Okay, it says strict and two, what it is. So whenever you are creating a rep application, as I mentioned, it's a bit strict when it comes to the rules, what all things you can specify, what all keywords you should be using in all those terms. So the idea is, in future, if some new functionalities are being released, SAP is anyway going to ensure that those are backward compatible. The things that they are releasing new are quite compatible with the backend. But if you have not followed the rule correctly, the idea is that your earlier development might start failing because of the latest releases which are happening. To avoid those sort of failure, they are saying, please follow the rule that we are specifying. This strict 2 has also strict 1. Okay, I think strict 2 is the latest, and maximum strictness rules are assigned to it. Let me just give you an example. So for example, if someone of you would have worked with JavaScript, JavaScript has a ending character, terminating character as a semicolon. Okay, but if you don't specify, that's fine, right? It's not that strict. Same with any other things as well. Certain indentation, certain more things. It's quite liberal in its rule. It won't give you compilation or execution error. Rather, it will figure out, okay, this is what you might mean, and that's based on that assumption it will execute. But when you would like the things to work without any errors, issues, what you will write is you will write a keyword in your JavaScript as well called use strict. When you do that, system understand that you would like my program to also be analyzed in a strict manner, so that if I'm making any syntactical error, if I'm missing out on anything, please inform me well before, so I can ensure that I'm resolving those errors. Okay, so that's the same thing. This is a strictness. Now, definitely it's ABAP, it's SAP. Definitely it won't give you the full liberty saying remove the strictness and you can write whatever you would like to. No, that's not going to be the case. But strict keyword ideally ensures that all the underlying rule, like whenever you are executing a SCI or ATC, right? SCI or ATC, it has certain set of rules. Same way, strict has its set of rules defined from a SAP standard perspective. That's what it will try analyzing. Always go with a maximum strictness level. It will give you the option. It will give you the advantage, saying once you have done the development, once it's up and running, you are not supposed to go back and look again into it. Okay, that's the advantage. So that's what we'll go with. Strict 1 was the first set of strictness rules. Those were released. Strict 2 is the second one, and that's maybe the latest one. Maybe if they come up with the next one, you will see a number getting changed. That's all 1 and 2 means. Okay. Now, afterwards, you will see define behavior. This behavior you will see for all the route and the composition block. I have it for the travel, I have it for the booking. As it's managed, we say is that we are saying that the standard REST API operations it will handle by its own. It means if I say create a record, it will create and push the data in the relevant table by default without me writing any single line of code like we used to do in a gateway based OData services. So if I just go over here, you will simply see that DM or travel is a persistent table that has also been specified. It means if you create a table, if you create a record if you try to trigger a post call on my travel, there is a table on which I'll store the record. Okay, but will it be that simple? Let me just put a cursor on this one, which will say that, okay, it has a column, travel underscore ID, agency underscore ID, customer underscore ID, begin underscore date, and likewise, right? Let me just put a cursor on this one, which is this behavior. Oh, okay, maybe let me just put a cursor. Okay, let me just say R view over here, right? This is a travel. And what I see is that it has got the columns, travel ID, agency ID without any underscore. Now, I mean, today I am following some sort of a uniform name. Maybe I can force that, okay, please assume that my underscore is being replaced and I'm converting it to camel case. But that may not be the case always, isn't it? I may end up changing this aliases to anything I want, right? So that's the reason you will see this persistent table is showing up, but at the same point in time, it's giving me some warning. It says that travel ID, which is a part of this particular entity, R view, is not part of the table. So in a way, it's trying to question us that if my travel ID, which I am seeing over here in the table, it's not part of the view, where will I get the data from? Okay, that's a question that it's posing. Okay. Another thing is maybe here it's also looking for the key travel ID. So whenever I say there is a key, right, the key parameter of it should be some sort of, let's just say, generatable. For example, if I say travel ID, I'll say, hey, I would like to generate a travel with ID 1. My fellow customer, fellow agent will also say, hey, I would also like to create a travel with travel ID 1. Should it be the case? Not really, right? I mean, ideally, I should be responsible for my primary key generation. From my end user perspective, it can be anything, but for my database perspective, that's a primary key, which should not be duplicate. It should always be unique. Okay, so those things I should mark ideally as a read only, or after creation, I should not allow anyone to update it. Otherwise, there won't be any connection. I won't be able to correlate after a record has been created. That's what it says. Okay, so we'll try to get rid of all these warnings one by one. Then locking. Whenever I am performing any sort of update, any sort of a record I'm working on, other end user should not be able to go ahead and change that particular record for that during that point in time. Okay, otherwise my data won't be in a consistent state. So what this locking is, this lock master ideally says that if I would like to ensure that my record is, let's just say, not being changed by multiple developer, multiple end user at the same point in time, how can I ensure that the record I get on my screen is a recent one, it's the most latest one, and it's not being edited by someone? What will give me that surety? Because there is a backend, that's a UI, both are connected by a client server architecture. There should be some means with the help of which they can figure that out. That's why this lock master and authorization on a data level as well. So if I say I'm going ahead and working on travel, am I really allowed to edit this, or I'm only authorized to just display this, or even I'm authorized to view this record as well? Those all the things will come into picture with the help of authorization. That these are mainly two kind of, a global and an instance. That's something we are going to discuss. So each of this chunk will go step by step, and we'll understand that E tag is also a point which will help us in achieving the locking mechanism. Now my travel over here should be, let's just say, created. My travel node over here should have the capability of creation, updation, and deletion. So the operations that you specify over here, you are saying that these are the capability I want. If let's just say you remove update from here, and the moment you create a projection, you won't have that option to expose that capability. So anyone who is using your endpoint can only trigger a post and delete call, won't be able to trigger a put call if you remove this update. Okay. At the same point in time, if I go by the booking, most of the things will look same, uh, other than few minor stuff, which says that, for example, if I'm saying capabilities, here it's only update and delete. It says that you can create a booking for sure, but you can only create once your travel has been created, and you can create your booking only with reference to your travel. Reason is that there is a composition. That's a hard relationship. It says that without existence of my travel, my booking cannot exist. That's the reason. What you will say is you will say association underscore booking, the name of the booking that you would have specified in your R view, and you will say that create operation should be governed by this. If someone is trying to directly trigger a post call onto booking, that should fail. But if someone is trying to trigger a post call on the travels association booking, then it should be passed. Someone can update and delete it, but definitely should not be directly creatable. Otherwise, I might end up in a scenario where a booking exists which does not have any parent travel available, right? Same, there is a table onto which this will be stored. Now, I never specified, right? I just right clicked over here and just created a behavior, but it scanned the underlying table, underlying views, and figured out the table onto which you are doing the select and fetching the data from. This may or may not be correct, and that's the reason what you will do is you will always revalidate this and write a correct table over here. Okay. Another thing is the log dependency. So whenever your parent is locked, whenever travel is locked, your booking should also not be editable. That's what you are trying to say over here. And any point in time, your uh, parent's data, which is nothing but this travel data, should not be editable. That's the reason you will see by default it's appearing into this particular read-only mode. Okay. Now let's just try to understand the behavior implementation class. I'll just click on this. You see, this is how a behavior implementation class looks. It's a global class over here. It says there is a class whose definition is a public abstract final, and it is defined as a behavior class for this view, which is nothing but your R view. Its implementation is also empty. So where I can see all those logic writing and implementation, you will see it in this particular local types. Okay, over here. There is a global class here in local types you can see, or you can click on this arrow and you can simply say LHC, which are nothing but your handler class. So in RAP, we ideally have two kind of classes: a handler class, which handles all the operations. For example, some sort of authorization thing, right? Some sort of authorization thing, some sort of let's just say determination, validation, certain custom actions that you are creating. All the buffering activity, I can say, you can handle via LHC class. Afterward, there will be something called save sequence. In that save sequence, you will decide, okay, what all data I would like to push to the DB, whether my data is consistent even before I update that entry into the database. Those all the things will come as a part of your save sequence. But many of the time while you are creating off with the manage wrap thing, all your, if you see in behavior, I have create, update, delete. But do you see any methods for that? Not really, right? Because SAP's ref manage framework is handling those. You are not supposed to write any line of code for that. Okay. Anything which is quite specific to your application, your business, that's what you will only write the logic for. Okay. Rest of the things will start working automatically even without you writing anything. Okay. Now, let's just do this. Let's just try to get rid of all these warnings and try to activate this and see how I can see if I have a create, update, delete operations appearing over here, how that can be done. Or I can say, forget about an application, how I can make my service CRUD enabled. Okay, how I can ensure that it has got those capabilities. Okay. Now let's just go one by one. It says that there is an alias which is commented. Let me just give this alias. We will be using this alias going forward. Rather than using technical name, you can always give an alias. So I'll just say there is nothing but a travel for me. Okay, and here maybe we'll give an alias which will say that there is nothing but a booking for me. Okay. Now, what does it say? Warning number 1. It says that travel ID should be either a read only or read only update. Makes sense because there is a primary key. So here we have certain thing onto the field layer. Okay, I can say these are nothing but my operations. These are nothing but my association. At the same point in time, there is something called field control, which controls how my field is behaving, whether that's behaving as a read-only field, whether that's behaving as a mandatory field, whether there is some field which is behaving read-only after I create it once. Depends, right? So these are called field control, or in other term, it's called static field controls. Because once you say that there is a field which I would like to be a read-only field, then going forward it will always be read-only. Rather, there can be certain field which you would like to uh, let's just say alter. For example, if I say uh, expect, let's just say purchase contract. Okay, so I'm saying a purchase contract can be of type quantity contract and value contract. So if it's a value contract, I would like a value field to be editable. But if it's a quantity contract, I would like that field to be read only. Possible, right? So depending on certain cases, I would like certain things to be read only and editable. Okay, so those are called dynamic field control. We'll see how dynamic field control can also be implemented. Okay, so now static field control, what does it say is that this field should be read only or read only update. We know ideally my primary key should not be entered by anyone, but for now, for us to start with, let's just give some open capability to it. So I can go ahead and enter the travel ID and create a record for that. I'll just simply say field, and maybe I'll just simply say it's a read only one, but during the update. So you will specify the field for field control, and in the round bracket, you will see all those options that you can specify. Okay, I'll just cut this. You see, it says mandatory, create, execute, feature instance, numbering, all those things you will see. I'll just simply say read only update. Which field we are talking about? We are talking about the primary key of it, which is nothing but a travel ID. So I'll just simply say travel ID. Now you will see the moment we are writing any fields over here, we are writing in the on the R view layer. It means we should always specify the field name which are matching with this one. And those are the one that you will get as a value help when you type control space or commands space. Oh, sorry, command control space over there only in the Mac as well. Yeah, both the cases. Okay, next I'll just simply say what is the other warning that we are getting over here. So it says that this particular field over here, travel ID, is part of this entity, but it's not part of the table. So it says a mapping definition should be added or mark the field as a read only. Okay, so I should mark the field as a read only, or I should be specifying some mapping. Now, why do I need a mapping at the first point in time? Okay, let's just understand this. So I'll just go over here on my application side. So this application over here, I'll just show you in the inspect. I mean, just for us to understand the things, how they are working. I mean, this may not be in any theory that you might look for in any of the blogs, but I'm just sharing this by what I understood when I learn RAP. Okay, I'll just click on Go, for example. Okay, if I click on Batch, what do you see over here is in the payload, it tries selecting certain thing. It says you are selecting travel. It's trying to select a travel ID, agency ID, customer ID, right? How it is deriving those fields? Because you have exposed a consumption view over here, and this consumption view has a field with this names, system is able to correlate that, okay, there is a field that you are able to, this is a field that you are trying to look for. And as we have specified UI.line item, these are the columns that it is specifying. This is a get call, right? How about a post call? Consider tomorrow you are trying to create a record. The moment you will create, definitely anyone will expect that my backend post call that will get triggered in order for orders creation will also have the same property in the terms of my travel ID, agency ID, and all this. And here you are saying that my data should be persisted in this persistent table with travel underscore ID, agency underscore ID. Now, how my system will know whether my travel ID has to be stored in travel underscore ID, right? If the name of the table field and the name of your properties over here, forget about the case, uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter, are not matching. Okay, then in that particular case, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to specify that if you are getting any sort of a, let's just consider a scenario of create. If you are getting a post call with the properties, this one, then if you are getting any input in my agency ID, go ahead and push that particular data in the agency ID of the particular table over here. If you are getting any data in my customer ID, go ahead and push that data into agency ID field in the customer ID field of my table. customer underscore ID. So that mapping should be specified. In case the name is quite similar, you may omit this particular mapping, or you can write the mapping in a single line. But if the names are different, you have to define the mapping for each and every field. That's a base rule for that. Okay. So what we are going to specify is, we understood static field control. We'll have specified one. We'll go with another. These are the operations. We'll have associations, and now last thing that we'll go ahead with is called, let's just say, mapping. Here we'll specify the mapping. I'll just simply say mapping for, what is the for that we'll be specifying? I'll just simply say table over here. And here we'll specify the mapping for my, let's just say, field. Now, you remember when we used to write the things in ABAP, right? I have two internal table. I would like to pass the data from one to another. What will you ideally write? You will say move corresponding, right? If the names are similar. So you will simply say corresponding, and that's all, because the names are similar. That's what you are saying. But in this case, if I write corresponding colon, the warning will be gone, but will it be really able to pass the data from one to another? Not really, right? Because correct mapping has not been specified. In such case, what we used to do in ABAP, if the table column names are not matching, we used to either do the field mapping one-to-one, saying ls travel underscore id equal to wa dash travel id, right? Likewise, we used to do all those things within a loop, or maybe we used to define some sort of a mapping by mapping object in a CL ABAP corresponding, and there are multiple stuff in your ABAP that you can perform. Same way over here, if you specify like this, your data won't be persisted. That's a fact. Okay, we have to specify the mapping. You can just remove this semicolon, and within this, after this, you can specify curly bracket and say, just press a control space on the left hand side, or I can say here, you will get the name of your property over here. Okay, I'll just simply say travel ID. Just write equal to and just again press control space. You will get the name of your table field. Okay, so I'll just simply say travel ID over here. What does it mean? Is if I'm getting any data in my travel ID, this is where it should be persisted. So on the left hand side, you will specify the entity. On the right hand side, you will specify the property. Now, why this on left? Why this on right? Because that's how the ref framework has defined it. We don't have any control on that, but that's how they want the input in the form of, the person would define the utility. That's how they would have written the logic on their underlying framework layer. That's why we have to provide the data in this form. Now let's just do it for the rest of the property. I'll just say agency ID. If I'm getting any data, I should be specifying it like this. For example, another one may be my customer ID. So I'll just specify the customer ID as well. Okay, and maybe let's just say some sort of a begin date we had. You can also try omitting certain field, and you will see that that might not get saved. That's something you can also try out if you would like to. Okay, maybe what else we had? Booking fee.
Amit, how did we end up having a different name? Like,
What
didn't
do you think?
we always choose like all our column fields which automatically used to populate? No?
Yeah, right. If I double click on this travel, what did we do? We said control space, but when you do that, ideally auto completion will give the alias in the camel case, because that's a convention of a VDM. VDM always try to convert the fields into non-technical one. It will suggest this. Later on, you can change it whatever you would like to. Okay.
I see.
So
Okay.
idea is also quite simple. The idea is that if I say travel underscore ID, for this is still understandable. Now let's just consider EBELN. From my perspective, it's a small, tiny abbreviation of a German keyword, right? But for
Right.
let's just a person who is doing a development might be sitting across multiple countries. For him, EBLN does not make really any sense. For that particular
Yeah.
developer or for end user or the person who is consuming, it should be called as a purchase order. That's the
Right.
reason in VDM, ideally you give an alias which is not kind of a non-technical, which is more understandable. Okay. Okay, now after this, I'll just simply say other one, total price, and maybe what is that? Total price only. Maybe currency code will also be there for that. Yeah, currency code. Maybe some sort of a description we have given. Now here you can omit this, but I'm just still specifying. It's just an uppercase and lowercase, so which ideally won't create any issue. Then I have overall status. I'll just simply say overall status. Okay. Let's see, in case there are something which we are missing on, we'll specify them going forward. Now, this particular block over here does not have any issues for now. Now let's just look for this. Here it has also got the same thing. It says booking ID over here. You have flagged it as a read only. You should be flagging it as a read only or read only update, right? So I have flagged this one as a read only, but I'll make the booking ID as a read only update. I'll just simply say read only update. Because there is a primary key. You might have observed that it gives this issue only for the primary key because that's what it is trying to make secure. Okay. Now here for the booking as well, it says specify a mapping. That's what it says. Is not part of this. Either a mapping should be specified or you should mark this field as a read only. So I'll just simply say these are also nothing but my operations. These are also nothing but my static field control. Now, as you can see, the sequence does not matter. In the upper one, we specified static field control first, and here we are specifying it below. So sequence ideally does not matter. You can have it one after another. That's not an issue. But try to make it symmetric so it's easy for you to refer it going forward. I'll just say simply mapping. Mapping will specify for my this particular table. Okay, so what all things we do have in my booking as well. Let's just go over here, open this. Okay, I have my travel ID, booking ID, and all this particular stuff, and that's what we also should be specifying, right? So these are the things that we might need. I'll just go in my behavior definition here, and I'll just go over here. I'll say booking ID. One thing which most of the time might be a common issue, which you will also experience is everyone do the mapping and everything for this one. But if you forget it for the travel ID, you will see you will create the record, but the moment you save it will be gone. Because your travel ID over here in your booking table, okay, should also be persisted. Till the time that's not persisted, your key won't be accurate and your data will be lost. So while you're doing any sort of such mapping, ensure you are doing the mapping for your travel ID as well, because it seems it's part of upper entity, but that's not the case, right? It's part of your actual booking table as well. So you should be specifying that without forgetting. I'll just keep it in the center so it's more readable. Okay, customer ID, maybe it has customer ID. Maybe it has currency code, the one it just prompted for. Currency code as well. Maybe some sort of a carrier ID. And some sort of connection as well it has. Connection. Okay, maybe the flight information. Okay, the date and the price. Oh, my bad. Okay, and maybe I guess what else we are left out with? Booking date, ID, booking status. Anything left? Date, ID, status, carrier ID, connection ID, flight date, mostly done. Okay, let's see. Now, once it has been done, what we'll see is that we don't have any warning. We have this stuff for which we are supposed to write certain thing. We'll talk about that. I guess we'll work on that. Okay. Now, what we are supposed to do? This is defined on the definition layer. We still don't have the things available on my projection layer. Okay, I have activated this. Now, the thing which I'll focus towards, or I'll just say I'll move towards is the exposure part of it. So it says that the CDS data model has a behavior definition assigned to it. Same way, the behavior projection should be linked to your database projection, which is nothing but your consumption view. Now, as we know that the purpose of this two view was to define the scope, saying these are the things which are there, but out of which what all things I would like to expose in the terms of a properties or associations. Same goes here. We have all the things defined, but out of which what all things I would like to make public and what all things I would like to define in the scope of my applications. That's what you will define in the projection. And where it will be linked to, it will be linked to my C view, consumption view, but again over here with the root view only. So I'll just go over here and I'll just simply say right click and new behavior definition. Now, while you are creating the object, you will always see the term definition. Okay. But depending on the kind of view that you are trying to create it. So for example, if I just simply say right click over here and new behavior definition, definitely it's failing. I mean, it will fail, but you are getting an option over here, manage and unmanage, isn't it? I'll just cancel this. These are R view. I'll just go ahead and right click on my C view and I'll just say new behavior definition. As you can see, system figured out that there is a C view not by the naming convention, but the content of it has something called projection. And that's the reason the moment you right click on this and say new behavior definition, it will give you the option of a projection. Okay. Many a time you will see the interface, but this not something which is being used. The idea is it just creates a template and you are again exposed consuming that interface. In the standard reps guideline as well, you will always go with this particular projection. Now, after doing this, you will see the name of this is also matching with this. It means how many behavior projection I can have? Only one, because the name should match. I'll just simply say next over here and I'll try to finish it. Okay, now let's just try to compare this thing. I'll just simply say this one and this one. Okay, now what do you see? This is my behavior definition. This is my behavior projection. The keyword mentioned over here is manage, and here it is called projection. It says whether it's manage or unmanaged, and here it is a projection. Strictness will anyway be here as well. The alias over here you have to specify. I can say you can specify, but I'll always keep a habit of keeping both of them similar. You can have it different, won't give a issue, but from a symmetricity perspective, it makes sense if you have it similar. Now here you have create, update, and delete. Out of whichever operation that you expose, only those operation will work. So for example, even though I have defined it over here, but I'll say, hey, I don't want to give an update capability. I'll just comment that out. In the booking, I have a create capability over here. I have this association and everything. So I have this particular view also up and ready. The purpose of my projection view is to project the capability. As you can see, what all thing I'm exposing. Am I exposing static field control? Not really, right? I am not specifying static field control. That will be by default exposed. What all things I should have in my behavior projection? You should have all your actions and associations. Okay, mainly now that action can be a standard action like we do have create, update, delete, or if you are also defining any custom actions, that's something we are also going to learn. So any custom actions or functions that you might create, that's something you will also expose over here. Any sort of a mapping, no, that won't be part. That's a part of the projection. You will have it established by default on your R view, and that will be considered. You are not supposed to specify it on your C view here. Okay, that's how you ideally specify. Any sort of determination, validation, no, they won't be part of your projection. Any sort of action, yeah, they will be. Okay. So these are the questions that you might face in your interviews, in your certification exam. That's something you should be quite clear about. I'll just go over here, edit over here so I can have a single screen and I'll just activate this. Now let's see how my system is behaving. I just enabled this particular capability over here. I have not touched my UI application since long time. It's in a running state. Okay, as it is, let me just refresh this app. You see, I have not touched my UI. Thanks to the backend capability, my create and delete also started appearing over here. You see, the things just started appearing without me doing anything. But one thing I mentioned, that don't give the update capability. Now, update capability is anyway not a button over here in Fury element, rather that's a button called edit. So if I just open this, I have a way I can delete this, but I don't have a way to edit any of this data because I say that I don't want the update capability. Now, if I just simply say, hey, I would like to have the update capability as well, I'll just simply say use over here and I'll just say update. Now, many one of you would think um, it's a Fury element, right? Maybe it would be referring to those keywords or let's just say anything that's getting converted into metadata. But I might create a freestyle application. I can give a edit and delete button even without the backend giving it. What difference will it make? So if you do that, your backend call will fail. You will have the button, but the moment you try triggering the relevant backend call, you will get the backend message saying that particular operation is not enabled for you. Okay, I'll just simply refresh this now after I activated my, sorry, screen stuck a bit. Okay, I'll just go over here. Yeah, okay, browser. Yeah, here. And I have got this edit button as well because I have exposed that particular capability as well. Okay, so this is how I expose the capability. Now we'll see how the records and everything is going to get created. If there are anything which is also going to hit us back, because this is just the beginning, we have not specified much thing. What are the bare minimum thing that we will need in order for anything to work? Or let's just say there was one question also by Ekansh yesterday saying, if I have a table, I would like to update it, how simple it would be. So it would be, I think, quite simple if I just go over here in the this one and I'll just simply say these are vacation, but I'll edit this and I'll say, hey, vacation was there, but I just updated my vacation um, um, to something, for example, Europe. I'll just save this. This is how simple it is going to be. It will update this record onto the backend without me writing any ABAP line of code, just by simply exposing that data and just by specifying the right set of mapping, because my system know the description over here is mapped to this, and that's where it will update it to. Okay. Okay, I'll just take a pause over here. Any doubts, any questions, anything you guys have? No? Yes? Are we all clear? Are we all confused?
So
So
one thing,
first,
Yeah, go on.
yeah,
Yeah,
one thing,
maybe.
Sumit.
Mm-hmm.
So regarding the field control, it's just an option that I saw there as numbering, right? I think.
Mm-hmm.
l-
We have that
So
capability. Yeah. So yeah.
when you add a new record, is
Mm-hmm.
that numbering or in order to generate a number range or something like a sequential number if you want? Or what is the purpose? Like I have a requirement, let's say I have to generate a new number every time, let's say a new travel ID every
Mhm.
time. So is it managed through any ABAP code or it's automatically generates a new number, like a next number kind of thing?
So
Like how
in
does new
RAP,
travel ID get generated? Yeah.
okay, I'll tell you. So in RAP, we have different kind of applications. In RAP, we have two kind of key combinations. Okay, one I can say a non-semantic key. Okay, which is called a GUID key. So for example, here, what is a primary key for my table? It's nothing but a 1, 2, 3, a travel ID something, right? But it is a
Mhm.
semantic key because for me it makes sense. Plus for the user also it makes sense. For me, as in for the
Right.
database also, it's a primary key. But when I call it as a semantic key, that's what it means. That for travel
Right.
ID, in this particular case, travel ID is a semantic key. Now this managed numbering is there to help you with the GUID key, because going forward the guideline is try to use the GUID key so that your number generation activity is something that the system can take care of. Okay, so when you say a key is there, which is a non-semantic key, which is nothing but a GUID, if you would like to generate a new GUID, There are utility classes, CL above GUID, and you can just CL above UUID, and you can generate those. But rather than doing that, if for that field, you can simply specify maybe somewhere over here. Maybe, yeah, numbering managed, right? This one, if you specified, provided the property that you specified over here is a GUID based property, system will generate the number for that. Now, for your case, right, you would like to have the number generated for the travel ID, which is not a GUID key. Rather, that's something which my user is able to see. That's something which is making a sense for them. That's a semantic key. Then in that case, we have got two options. That's what we'll be using, and that's what we'll be learning as well. Early numbering and a late numbering. So this is what you will always see being used when it comes to semantic key-based objects. Semantic key-based business object. That's what travel ID is. Travel object is. In this case, what happens is the moment you click on create, your record is going to get generated before your record gets generated before you click on final save. Before you click on final save, the idea is that you would like a number to be assigned and your user should not be entering it. So before your record gets saved, you would like to save that record, and that's where your early numbering comes into picture. I can say before record is pushed onto DB, you would like to, if I would like to generate a number, I want to generate a number. Okay, sorry, my bad. This is my bad. Before a record is pushed onto DB, I want to generate a number. That's a scenario of my late numbering. So my record gets pushed. Before that, at the last point in time, at the very last point in time, I'll generate a number. That's called late numbering. Before record is visible onto the screen, I can say. Before my record is visible onto the screen, I would like to generate the number. So my user, the moment they click on create, they'll know, okay, I am working on travel ID 1. That's called early numbering. So these are the scenarios that we do have. This we are going to cover this, but in your case, if it's a semantic key like ours, then it makes sense for you to use early numbering or late numbering. Your managed numbering will only work if it's a GUID based key. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe Ramesh, I see you have unmuted. Yeah, Karan.
No, I'm okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Can we create a custom pages?
Sorry,
Can we create a custom page?
custom page as in, can you elaborate it more? Are you talking from the front end side? Then yeah, via front end you can, but that's part of a front end. There is a wrap training.
Uh, and can we redirect to any custom page via any button or anything?
You can. That's something which will be in combination of your Fury elements and maybe sometime your UI annotation that you can use for UI based intent based navigation. That's what you can use in that case. Whenever you create a custom action, you can do that, and there you will be specifying certain URL or certain semantic object and action. You can navigate. So your idea is, or I can say your expectation is, for example, if I have a button over here like edit,
Yeah.
and I'll just say go to some application. The moment I click on that, I would like to navigate to let's just say another application. So whether that's possible by considering the data, for example, for my travel ID 1, I have travel statistics. So it should also open for that particular travel ID. That's your expectation, isn't it?
Yeah, that is also. And suppose here we give a Google search button, so we can navigate to any custom page like Google, YouTube, like that.
So look, from a custom Fury development perspective, anything that you are saying is possible. That's a freestyle UI development. That's what you can explore a UI Fury development for that, and you can get those answers for sure. Now, I'll answer it from the backend wrap perspective, what all things, to what extent they are possible. The one which we are considering over here is a Fury element template because our focus is on to the wrap on backend, not onto the UI. Now, here
Okay.
what you will see is the moment you click on go to, you would like to, you would like to have a button that you can achieve by having annotation onto the backend. So like we have a line item over here. Here, for example, if you would like to have a button on to the table, then you can go by the UI line item. If you would like to have a button over here, for example, here, then you can have some sort of type, and here you can specify some sort of a button. And this for intent-based navigation ideally can help you, where you will be specifying that from this application, when someone clicks on this button, I would like to navigate to some application. So when you create an application, each of the application over here will have let's just a semantic object and action. So the moment you specify that, you will be able to do that. For that, if you would like to go by the standard Fiori element, search with this one. For intent-based navigation, you will get those answers. If you would like to go with the freestyle, maybe you can refer to the freestyle application development, and you can look for those. Maybe it's not in this scope, but I can just still give you a context where you can look for. You can look for the samples and the demo apps. Here you will find any sort of navigation and what all possibilities. The link, if you would like to create and all, where you can create all those buttons, certain URL helpers and all. So these are all those options which you can. These are pure core UI thing. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Okay, now we have a few more things into the box. Okay, what all things are there? Okay, do we have any documentation for RAP? Yeah, we have. I guess there was a request onto the group, so I forwarded this PPT as well. Other than that, I always refer help.sap ABAP RAP. This one. It is everything and anything that has been released so far, and the one which is also going to get released. Everything starting from the screenshot, the one which you would have seen. These are the places from where I ideally refer. Okay, the evolve of it, that when you do the development, how the API will be generated, what is a BOS capability, manage, unmanage, the numbering thing that we are also discussing. All those things will be ultimately documented over here. You can refer this. Okay, CDS Fury element and Fury elements both are same. Okay, let me just give you an idea for that. I can say these are wrap. Okay, now Fury element is one of the template I use because we don't want to focus on UI. We want to focus on backend. I'm not going to touch my UI project at all. I'm going to just consume it and show. Otherwise, what I would have done is I would have triggered a post call, put call, and would show you in the postman, but that won't be quite something which you would be able to connect easily. Okay, that's the reason. Now, when it comes to CDS Fury element, you have seen this one which I just shown you, right? List report, developing object with this, list report object page. I would like to create something like this. I would like to create a filter. Now, in the CDS Fury element, this is how you write. And in the Fury element, if you would like to create a column or selection field, this is how you will write it. Okay. Now, if I just go over here in this one, which is your service binding, I'll just simply let it be. Sec. Maybe the ADT just took some more time. Yeah, now it is. I'll just click on this service URL. Okay, I'll just go over here rather. That would be more easy for us to understand. That's also helping us. Network. Go, and here I'll just have a batch, double click, and dollar metadata. Value list with fixed values and all those things. Maybe a code list. It's not showing me over here somehow. So ultimately, I mean, I'm just trying to look for something which was not being shown over here. But the idea is the moment you create this, the moment you write this, there is a backend. Now my UI is not going to touch to my backend. My Fury application is not going to communicate to it. What happens is the moment you write this, internally, whenever system generates it, it converts it into this particular one. System generates this as an annotation on an XML level. That's how your UI is being rendered. So your Fury element from the front end side and Fury element driven by CDS are kind of same. The only idea is the particular code that you were writing specifically over here are now being generated by the framework. But in a nutshell, your Fury application is anyway referring to this one only. But thus, the thing is, you are not directly writing it over there, rather that's being generated. That's the idea. Okay. Okay. Anyone else having any other doubts?
Hi, this is Himata here. I just have like whenever I have a requirement, like I had a requirement where I need to convert my custom report, which contains about complex calculations, and that needs to be as an app. So I thought of using RAP at that time, but that version was not supported at that time. So I did it in CDS. I just want to know whether all the complex calculations can be handled in these methods where we are implementing the behavioral definition.
Yeah, it does. So, okay, so first thing is when you said you implemented certain thing onto CDS views, right? So the idea is on the CDS view, I guess more or less, I can say more the things which are on RAP are kind of over and above that only. So whatever you would have done, definitely those things will anyway be supported on your RAP itself. So what you can do is while publishing, you would have consumed it in somewhere and maybe you would have exposed it. Rather, you can just have it in the form of a RAP. Complex calculation will be supported out of the box, because for your read only application, if I understood you correctly, if that's a read only application, you even don't need a behavior for that. That's something your CDS view will be handling. Now if it is not a read only and it's a transactional application, then yeah, your complex calculation everything will be pushed if needed onto your ABAP layer, and you can easily do it onto ABAP layer. But tell me one thing, whether that's a read only or a transactional app, the one which
Both,
you did.
actually, when we click the line item, it has to go to the purchase requisition change, PR change, so that it has to be done. For example, it is a PR list of PR items. When I click on one of the item, it has to go to the change mode in ME22.
Yeah, which is true, but ultimately the change of it will anyway be driven by your purchase requisition change itself, na? ME22.
Yes,
For that,
yes.
your application doesn't have to play any role in it. It's just giving an entry point, an index from where it can be navigated to. So
Yeah, as you said, like we have to. You said there will be a link where I need to give a statement to navigate to the particular transaction, right?
exactly, yeah. So that thing is, you look, there are two things. The application on which you are currently working, currently it's on Fury. So as it's on Fury, you won't be specifying a transaction, rather you will specify a combination, which is a combination in the form of your semantic object and the key and the action. Your ME22 ME20 52N, if it's a purchase order, should be exposed onto the Fury level, or you can use the application manage purchase requisition, give that particular thing onto your intent based navigation. Maybe you can search for it over here, intent based, and you can search find that multi selection intent based navigation. Whether that's the one, there is a link. You can simply say intent based navigation Fury element, and you will find it anyway. Outbound navigation. Okay, and in that case, what you will see is that those things are ultimately available. Not this one, navigation from this one, outbound. Yeah, here in this case, you will specify it like this, and your app, that particular app will be opened from that particular link, and that particular editing of that particular purchase equation will anyway be governed by that standard transaction. So in a nutshell, what you will need is a read-only application from RAP side, because your RAP application is not going to do more than that. It's always a read-only, so, right? That's what
RAP
I understood
application
from.
can also have the multiple, for example, if the user is asking a checkbox type, as you said, you made an item list report, right? You created an, for example, the first row has to be checkbox in that item list report instead of a radio button, and the user has to select multiple things, and you has to do some process in the button based on the button. At
Yeah,
that
the
point
custom
of time,
actions.
Yeah, custom action checkbox also can be handled in the wrap.
Yeah, it's not via wrap, but rather in your UI you can handle that. In your UI, in your table settings, you can ultimately make that thing multi-select. So
Okay.
that will be part of your table setting. That's the thing. What I'm saying is this particular things that we are talking about, ultimately here, over here in your list report one, you will have a table settings. In the table setting, you will specify that you would like the things to work as if it's a multi-select one. The moment you do that, your application will become multi-select. You are not doing any change on your backend. But in that case, the moment you trigger an action, those actions are now going to trigger for all the record that you are selecting over here. Now, if that's more than one, you will see a single batch call getting triggered for all the item, one call at a time. So on your backend, you will receive one call at a time, but on the UI, everyone will feel as if it's a mass processing. It's not a mass processing. SAP has broken down those things into batches. Okay. Now, in order for us to achieve this checkbox, do I have to do anything on backend? No. How will my wrap support those actions? Yeah, it will do those things easily by custom actions and the function that we are going to define on future. So currently your use case is easily something which looks possible to be that can be driven by wrap functionality. But yeah, from your UI perspective, whatever you are asking, I think most of the things will be achievable by Fury element. There are certain things which won't be. You can achieve those by the Fury element extension as well. That's something which will you will be able to do that.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
thanks. Okay, in which case we go for CDS element, in which case we should go for UF and Fury. For example, currently develop list report with CRUD operation, which may we will develop a list report. In any case, SAP suggestion is to go with a Fury elements wherever possible for the harmonized UI. And anytime if you say I would like to go with freestyle, you can do all those things that you are doing via your Fury element via your freestyle application as well. But that's a kind of a separate discussion for a UI based, I can say development. Maybe here I don't want to spend too much time on that, but there are not hard and fast rule which you should be, which option you should be going through. But if you're going with freestyle, you might end up doing much development onto the UI side, which might also take considerable amount of UI development effort, which you can avoid in case of a backend driven, or I can say a CDS based Fear element application development. Okay. Okay. And yeah, I think anyone else having any questions? No?
Yeah, Sumit, Vijay here.
Yeah, Vijay. Yeah.
Okay, what role ABAP plays in this wrap?
Whole. This whole ABAP, the one which we did over here, your wrap business objects. So your ABAP, I mean, here an ABAPer will play a role of a full backend developer plus partial UI development, I can say. Partial UI development as in you won't develop a UI application like I did right now. Rather, what you will do is you will develop your whole business object, and based on your, let's just say if I have a requirement, I would have some mockup, I would have some screen designing. So those all the things you will also be designing on your metadata layer. You will have those actions and anything that you would like to, you will link everything via the backend. So in a nutshell, other than developing an Fury application and maybe publishing and deploying it, whole backend relevant activity a developer will do. Now, starting when I talk about a backend, it can be a, let's just say data creation, or let's just say many a time people have a habit of writing all those validation and everything onto the UI side. Ideally, reps suggest don't write any sort of data validation onto UI side. Do it onto the backend. So although data validity, ensuring the data is in consistent state and everything, including the user's authorizations, whether he or she is authorized to perform certain actions, he or she is able to perform view certain data and all those authorization relevant activities, something which a backend developer will perform via this single wrap object. That's what its capability is. Okay.
Okay, I mean, I'm asking about programming perspective. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, do
Yep.
we go and
Yeah. Sorry. Do we go?
I mean, do we go and use ABAP to
Hmm.
write crossing logic? Somebody asked a question,
Yeah.
right, about whenever
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
select something on an interactive report,
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
crossing has to be performed. Where do we write such kind of code?
Exactly. So that's what it's going to come. I guess the moment we proceed. But I mean, just to answer in a single line, I can say this particular class you see over here, the top. This will have all those methods getting generated the moment you define any actions. because the one which we are talking about were actions, you will define it over here, and the logic over for that action you will be writing somewhere over here. So now you are in the context of ABAP. This is pure ABAP. You can write anything on the ABAP side you want, and this is where you will be handling those actions that you are, those are getting triggered from the backend. Now those are getting triggered from the UI. Okay. So that is going to be the place, and you, a web developer will be responsible for that. So the moment we go with the action, we'll see what all thing it has, what all inputs will it give, how I have to like process, and how I have to give the output. All those things we are going to discuss.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now let's just try to use the application to see what are the things which are working and what are the things which are not. Okay, now I'll just go over here and say I would like to fine tune it a bit. First thing, I'll just try to create this. Oh, just refreshed. Okay, now I'll just, for example, try to create something. I'll click on create. And I'll see that, okay, I have these things open, but at the same point in time, this admin data, this should be auto generated, right? So I'll just discard this and I'll say, hey, I would like these things to be read only. So I'll just simply say this field, I would like certain thing to be read only. Okay, and what are those? Created at, created by, last change at, and last change by. Okay, let me just activate this. Okay, let's just go back, try to click on create again. Oh, my bad. I have not refreshed my app. Okay, I see these fields are no longer controllable. I cannot do any sort of change. Second, this travel ID over here seems to be mandatory because there is a primary key and I am saying these read-only update, but let's see whether that works out or not. I'll see what all data I do have because I know I am trying to enter some travel ID, so I should be ensuring that that's unique. That's the reason we ideally don't give the control to the end user to enter any of such information. 4136, let me just try to enter 4137. 4137, agency ID 123. For example, I am entering customer ID. I'll just simply say today, starting date, I would like to end tomorrow. Booking fee, let's just say 100. Total fee 100, and maybe I would like to pay in USD. Description, I can say year-end vacation, and I'll just simply say the status is O. Now, this can be a drop down, this can be a value help. We'll see how we can enrich this. But we are first trying to see how these things are going to get persisted, whether my backend over here will store this record without me even writing any line of logic. I'll just simply say create. See, it just created something called 4137. I'll just go back over here and I'll see that, okay, this record just got created and I can see this particular record also over here. That's something which I can easily see. These are the things which I don't see appearing. Okay, now why that's the case, that's something we'll see. Okay, ideally, I can say that maybe we have specified those create annotations saying what is the individual columns, meaning those columns should also have been populated, but that's not. So that's a thing maybe we should try to get, let's just say, overcome. So that's one of the issue. What other issue we see over here? So there is a non-draft application, isn't it? So as there is a non-draft application, what we see over here is that the moment we go over here, okay, other than that, what we also added over here is, one sec. We have said that this particular travel ID is going to be read-only update, right? It means if I just go over here and I'll try to edit this, now my 4137 over here is in a read-only state because once it has been created, no one will be able to edit this information. Okay. So this is how it is looking alike. Now, what we also view as a behavior is the moment you say it's a non-draft application. Okay, if I just go over here and I'll just go in edit and I'll just change something. So for example, 22, I'll just change it to 23 and I'll go back. Okay, it says if you leave the page, you will lose the data. Consider I am not leaving the page. Consider someone just lost the connection because of XYZ reason. What should happen in that case? Should the data will be lost or it should be persisted? Okay, so whether the work which I have done till now, if it will be gone, then that would be a bit of a trouble for me, isn't it? So for that, there is one more capability of, let's just say, wrap that will come into picture called draft based application. So let's just write the open points over here, the one which we are also supposed to answer. So this is something which definitely we are going to consider, we are going to cover. But for now, what are the issues that we are seeing? That's something that we should be try overcoming. Is first one is my admin data should be generated automatically. Correct? The created by and all, I should not be the one who specifies that. Another one is the item data is not creatable by default or in edit mode. Third one, I can say if I say not creatable, it means if I just go and create, I don't see the item data because this is a non-draft application. In a non-draft application, till the time your header is not persisted, you won't see the item. At the same point in time, if I just go over here and I'll just open the record which I created, I can see the create button right now. But the moment I go in edit, my record won't be, I won't be able to create this because at a point in time, you can either create this or you can edit this object. So that's I can say how a non-draft application will behave. Okay, if I would like to create this, I can click on create, but in that case, I have to define this particular set of object page and maybe I have to go with that. Okay, I'll just discard this once. And here as well, if I just go over here, I can say my item data is not creatable by default in the edit mode. And maybe this particular edit, okay, item data I cannot create. That's something we can overcome. And the moment I update any updated data is let's just say not persisted in an intermediate state. This is something we should also be we should also plan to overcome, because what happens if my user is let's just say working on something and then he realizes, hey, this data is something which I know is partial, let me just talk to someone, then come back to you so that I have some accurate set of data that I can then going forward proceed with. Or let's just say somewhere he just lost the network and the effort that he or she would have let's just say spent for that will be gone, will be in total waste, right? So how this can be achieved? We'll resolve this. We'll talk about this one. But for us to have these two issues resolved at the same point in time, that item data is not creatable in edit mode and any updated data is not getting persisted. These two issues can be resolved in a single go by a single capability which REP ideally offers us, called a draft capability. Let's just discuss what is a draft capability. Okay. Now, does that mean that the moment I enable the draft capability, my rest of the things, those who are working, will keep on working? Not really. I mean, you cannot guarantee. Let's just try to give it a shot as well. Just to also give you a background, these days, once RAP and CAP came into picture, most of the application which are being generated these days from SAP Fiori, be it standard or custom, are mostly draft enabled. So that the advantage of draft functionality is there with all the application, because it helps us with in many ways. You are losing a power connection, or let's just say you just stepped out. Okay, you are just stepping out and you are stepping out with incomplete work, or I can say without saving your work. All those things you will be able to overcome when you go with that. Third one is maybe when you are changing, while changing anything, any data, you would also be interested in viewing what was the data there that was there earlier and what did I change it from. Okay, so I can say while changing, I would like to look at the earlier data, earlier version data, I can say. These all the things are possible if you go with a, let's just say, draft capability. Now let's just understand what is a draft capability and how framework has implemented it. So when I say what is a persisted data, anything that gets persisted into the particular table, that's what we can call it as a persisted data, right? Now, when I say whenever there is some power connection issue, or let's just say whenever you're stepping out, or let's just say if you don't save your work, that might be, let's just say, lost somewhere in between. I would like to avoid all this thing. Now, in order for me to avoid all this thing, what I will need some sort of a intermediate storage. I will need some sort of an intermediate storage other than this persistent table. What it would do is, so for example, consider you are trying to create a record. Okay, whenever you create a record, consider there is some intermediate storage. Consider it as a draft table. Okay, and there is a persistent table as well. So if while you are creating, the moment you click on create, you entered all those information, all those 1,000 fields of data, but you never clicked on save. Till that time you don't click on save, your data will be over here in your draft table. That's how the framework works. Okay, I can say data will be in draft table before saving, and your persistent table will only have the old records which were saved at that point in time. I can say new record won't be there. Okay, new record won't be here. The moment someone saves the data, this particular draft record will be deleted. I can say upon save, draft record will be deleted, and this particular new record will be pushed onto DB. Next time, for example, this particular record, someone tries to edit this. What system will do is, it will create a copy of your record into draft. So for example, whatever data it has, it just copied it over and just pushed it onto the draft. And your record, whatever is something that you tried editing, it's still there into the old state. I can say persisted record remains in the same state. Now, afterward, let's just say someone changed. So for example, someone changed the start date, end date. So at this point in time, what would happen is this particular draft record will always contain latest copy of the data, right? So your draft table will contain latest copy of the data, but your persisted table will contain the old data only, right? So your persisted table will contain old data. Now, when someone again clicks on save over here, what would happen is that your draft record again over here will be deleted, and this particular updated record will override the persisted record, and this will become the new copy of that particular data. Now, the advantage that you see over here, in case before someone attempts a save, there is some power issue, or let's just say because of some urgent work, you have to step out, or let's just say in between you would like to say, hey, what is the persisted data? I just changed something, but I don't remember what was there earlier. You can also look at the persisted data from here while your screen is showing you this one. Okay, so at any point in time, you are not losing your work. Now you will feel as if I have a dual persistency. It means I am unnecessarily spending dual database. I am spending twice for storing the data into the database. Not really, right? Because how many records I can have in my persistent table? All the active records, for example, I have 1,000 records. But how many records I can have in my draft table? I can have only those records which are currently either being updated or newly getting created. The moment someone saves, your draft is going to delete that particular set of records. So the moment you click on save, again, your draft record will be deleted. So if it had, let's just say 10 record earlier, now it will be 9. So always draft table will contain very limited set of data. Okay. Whereas your persisted record, the moment your draft record will be updated, draft record will be deleted, your persisted record will be updated with the latest data, or I can say will be updated, or you can simply say overridden. It will override the data whichever was there into the draft, whichever was there in the persisted table with the record that's now there into the draft table. So this is how this particular transition will work. Advantage you will get over here is that first issue that we are talking about, any update is not persisted in an intermediate state. That can be done because each time your let's just say intermediate state of data will be stored somewhere. So your persistent data won't be touched, but your actual data will still be kept somewhere as a copy. Another one is, as per the BO's definition, I cannot have a child node's data without an existence of a parent node data. That's the reason my item was something which I was not able to create without me adding the header data. But now, as my draft table is some sort of a persistency I can consider, I can expect that, okay, that particular record got created. What I can expect is that the moment I go over here, the moment I, let's just say, create a record will be inserted over here in the draft table of my parent. And hence, it will allow me creation of my child record as well. Okay, because my parent record exists somewhere. So the definition saying my child cannot exist without existence of a parent will be fulfilled, because now my parent record exists. Even though it does not exist in a persistent table, it still exists somewhere, and that somewhere is nothing but a draft table. Okay, so we'll see how that can be achieved, what all thing we are supposed to do when we ideally go with a draft enabled application. Okay, so what we are going to do in this particular case, let's just say we are going to add the skeleton. We may not be covering full thing right now because there are multiple dots we should be able to connect, and there are multiple things we should be also knowing. Let's just try to cover the things, the bare minimum dots. Let's just try to connect those as over here. Okay. So first thing, we would like to enable the draft capability. What will you do is, after this strict over here, you will simply write, I would like to go with a draft capability. You will just simply say with draft. The moment you do that, you will see multiple errors just started coming over here. Now you have to get rid of this particular errors. What does it say? It says there is no draft persistency specified over here. You have to specify draft persistency. I'll say okay. In that case, what I'll do is I have a persistent table over here. You have to specify a keyword called draft table. Draft table. Okay. Now in this case, you have to create a draft table. I'll just simply say, for example, ZJFD underscore travel. I just specified a table's name over here. Okay. And then it's also giving me some sort of error. There is no draft persistency specified. The behavior definition is strict. It means this particular every entity must be marked with a lock master. Okay. Or lock dependent. Okay. So the moment you specified this one, these are the issues that you just started getting. Okay. Now I'll just simply say control 1. It says create the draft table. System will allow creation of a draft table over here. I'll just double click on this. I just press control 1. Okay. I'll just simply say next, and I'll create this table. So system will create the table. I am not supposed to touch it. I am not supposed to change or specify the columns, anything. My system is going to define the table, which will have my travel ID. The structure of it will be exactly same as that of my normal table. Plus it will have some admin data, which will say when this draft was created, who did that, who is the owner of this draft, and other things. Okay, I'll just activate this. Okay, go back in your behavior definition and do a syntax check again. Now it says that there is a lock master. If you are using with draft, you should use a total E tag. Okay, that's what it asks for. Now let's just use a total E tag. After a lock master, I have to use a field called total E tag. Now, what does it mean? It says that if you are going with a draft enabled application, okay, consider that there is a record over here in my screen, which is like this. Now there can be two users who can use, I can say there can be more than one user who can go ahead and open this record at the same point in time and can at the same point in time try to click on edit. Possible? Right. Now, as we are saying, wrap handles locking. Ideally, the system should avoid it, but still there is 1% chance, right, that one user enter into the system at the same fraction of second and they somehow made it. They somehow went into edit for the same screen, right? Now, what happens? In this particular case, okay, I'll just push this particular thing into the bottom. Okay, now if there is still 1% chance that more than one user entered my screen at the same point in time, clicked on edit, I would like to maintain or ensure the consistency of my data. Okay, now what happens is if I have a record, for example, consider my travel. Okay, and there is a travel call 4137 that has, let's just say, record with, let's just say, start date today plus tomorrow, some sort of a description is maintained, XYZ thing. Okay, I can say my sample travel. And there will be some information which will be always unique for the record, isn't it? The person who created it plus created at, plus there can be some certain thing, the last change at, which will say, okay, when this record was changed at the last. I'll just say it was updated on 21st of Jan 2024 at 10:30, let's just say 22 seconds. Okay, in AM. That's what I'll say. Now, if two users, user number one over here, and there is a user number two over here, the moment they click on edit, what would happen? This particular same copy will be created onto the draft over here. So this was a persisted record. Okay, and now this is a draft record because they clicked on edit, so draft record got created. At the same point in time, my other user also went ahead and did this. Now, what happens is this user changed something. For example, sample travel, he just said my travel. And this user over here said, let's just say vacation. But before this user saves this data, this user over here tries to, or I can say click on save button. Now, how my backend works? My backend system will try to look for the field which I specify over here in total E tag. I'll say last change that is the field that I am looking for. So my system will try to look for this field called last change at, and will the moment you trigger a save, it means you are trying to trigger either a put call or a merge call or a patch call. My system tries to compare this particular field last change at, or for example, any field in that case, which you will specify over here. It can be anything. Okay, it does not need to be necessarily just a date or timestamp field. But as a best practice, or I can say the simplest thing, you should always keep the timestamp of the record, which states that when this was changed at the last. Okay. So someone tries to save this for the very first time, the put, page, or merge call will get triggered. This will ultimately tries to validate this total e-tag field for the very first time. It will say, hey, you are trying to update this with vacation, that's fine, but which copy of your data, what is a copy of the data that you are currently carrying? So as this information would have got, let's just say, received on the UI, they would be knowing that, okay, there is a data copy which I have. It will try to validate this thing with the one which is there in the persisted record. If this matches, then only this update will go through. Okay, it means someone says click on save, maybe in the same second, or let's just say a microsecond here and there, or maybe after 5 minutes, this user tries to save this. So the moment my user 2 clicks on save, this record first will validate last change it as it's matching my use this record, or I can say this update will be saved perfectly fine on my persisted DB. Plus, it will update this particular thing over here saying now it's 10:33. Okay. So this particular draft record over here will be vanished. This will be gone. Now, after some point in time, this user felt that, okay, I am also ready with my change. Let me save this. The moment my user clicks on save, system will try to validate what is your e-tag value. It will say it is this one, 10:30. But system will figure out that no, there is some change in between. Before you tried saving this record was changed in between by someone. So it means the copy on which you tried updating is not the latest one. Now there are pretty good chances that you both would have updated the same set of data, or the person who would have updated the data before you, is his or her change will be lost if I allow your change to be saved, right? And that's the reason system will say that please reload the data, get the recent copy of the data before even you proceed with your update, because your data which you had is changed in between before even you persisted it. Okay, that's what we ideally call it as a total e-tag. The total e-tag's responsibility is to ensure the accuracy of the data. Okay, and here you will ideally specify anything which is unique. It can be a timestamp like this, or it can be some hash key as well. So each time, many business object might also choose to generate some hash key based on the kind of record, or I can say data that they have. Okay, that's also one of the possibilities. So any field that you can out of your entity, you can specify over here. Most suggested field is this one, last change at. Okay, that's one. Now what else we do have as a warning? It says that whenever you are working on a draft based application, there are certain framework actions it should have. Now these framework actions are ideally responsible to keep, or I can say to maintain, the life cycle of your data. The moment someone clicks on edit, this action will get triggered. The moment someone say, hey, I don't want to save the data, there is an action which will get triggered. If someone says save this data, a action will get triggered. Likewise, there are certain standard actions, I can say standard draft actions, which will get triggered, which are also quite important and required. Standard draft actions will be required for a draft enabled application. What are those? System is giving me error. Let's just read it from there. It says there is an edit action, resume action, and prepare action. That's something you will need. Okay, I'll just go with edit, draft action, edit. Okay. Other thing it looks for is draft action, resume maybe. What else it has? It says draft action, prepare, and activate. Okay. So draft action, prepare. Sorry, draft action. Let's just say activate first. I'll tell you why I'm keeping the prepare at the last. And here it says draft action, discard. Draft action, discard. And the one it asks you to add, it says that this action it's calling it as a draft determine action. The other actions were draft action. This is called draft determine action. That's what you should be adding. Draft determine action, and it's named as a prepare. Now, these are the actions which are quite, let's just say, auto-generated. These are responsible for your draft lifecycle. Whenever someone clicks on edit for a record for the very first time, the moment your active record copy gets persisted into a draft table, that's where this edit call will be generated. if someone has done some work, left the things in between, and going forward, they came back and they then say that, okay, I would like to again start resuming my work, that's where resume will get triggered. The moment the user says, hey, I have done all my work and now I would like to persist it, finally the activate will get triggered. If someone says, hey, whatever work I have done, I don't want to keep it, maybe it's invalid, I don't want to have it. So you can discard your changes, that's what discard action will get triggered. In between your this action, if someone would like to perform some sort of enrichment of the data, some sort of a validity of the data needs to be validated, all those things, then in that case, your prepare method is something that will be responsible for that. So we'll see how all these actions will play a role. Are we supposed to do anything if you would like to use this? No, these are framework action. But if there is a possibility that I would like to do something additional while these actions are being performed on top of whatever is being done by the framework, can I do something extra? You can do that. For that, there are ways. By going with additional implementation, we'll talk about that. And now what does it say? Okay, this should be optimized. Maybe here we ideally specify. It's not mandatory, it's a warning, but there is a way we can, yeah, here we can optimized. So idea is that it will always ensure that once all the data and everything is accurate, then only it will try to activate the data. That's the reason it says try to keep the activate action optimized, because the moment you say optimize, your draft is going to get deleted and your actual DB is going to get persisted. But that particular save sequence should only get triggered once the surety of the data accuracy is there. So keep this particular call as an optimized one. So that's what ideally framework suggests. Okay. Now, once we have this, we'll go with the item one. Okay, so there is a travel header. Now we have this one, which says, okay, here also you don't have a draft persistency. I'll say, okay, let me just have this. I'll just copy this and we'll paste the same thing over here. I'll just say ZD travel, but this time it's not a draft for travel, it's for booking. So I'll just say ZJF booking. Does this table exist? Not really. I'll just say control one, create draft table for this, go next, and finish. Okay, and it will create a table. I'll just simply activate this. Okay, go back and do a syntax check. Okay, now the moment you do that, you see most of the warnings are gone, but there is something. It says if you are saying my create, update, delete, all the operations should be draft enabled. What is the issue with this one? Association by create. If someone tries to create a booking, that should also be draft enabled, because here also you specify draft, but what about the association? So the booking creation over here, you have to specify a keyword called with draft. Okay. At the same point in time, this one, association travel, if someone tries to update the travel with reference to the booking, that should also be draft enabled. So I'll just simply say with draft. Okay. So you see this particular things are now error free. The idea is that now you have enabled the draft capability on your application. Okay. But just to remind you again, this is a definition. This is not the implementation. So if I just go over here, go back on my application, and I'll try to refresh. Ideally, the sign of a draft enabled application is you will get an option saying whether you would like to view the draft record, active record. So there is an auto generated filter that you will get. That's one sign of your draft enabled application. Another sign of your draft enabled application is that the moment you try to open any record and go into edit. Okay. And if you change something, for example, I'm changing this 40 into 41 and I'll just press enter. There should be a message called draft updated that should also come into picture. That's also not coming. It means it's not a draft enabled application yet because you just mention it onto the definition layer. On the projection layer, the things are missing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just simply say this one. And now I have to ensure that my projection over here is also projecting the draft capability. For that, what you will do is, like we have a with draft, here you have to, as you can see, here we had create. What we use create. Here we have update. We use update. Same way, whenever we have any capability we would like to expose, you will use the keyword use. I'll just simply say use draft. Okay, now the moment you do that, you see this actions were something which was throwing an error that you don't have this actions exposed. Same goes over here. The moment you say use draft and you have a strict, your edit action should be there, and likewise it will start giving this error for all these actions. Okay, so you have to ultimately expose those actions as well. I'll just simply say use edit, but it's an action, right? So that's the reason I'll just simply say edit as an action. Use action. What all action we see over here into the list, we'll try to add all of them. Use action. Other one is activate. Use action. Discard. Use. And prepare action is also termed as an action when it comes to exposure. I'll just say prepare. Plus the bookings and everything over here, we have added a with draft over here, right? So the same keyword we should also be adding over here. And same goes over here as well. And I'll activate this. Okay, so now I'll just go back and go back over here, and we'll show you a couple of things. First one, I'll just show you the activated metadata, service metadata. Okay, so your service metadata has changed a bit. If you observe, what does it say is it has exposed an entity I draft administrative data, which gives the draft administrative data's information. Let's just focus on the entity that we are handling, travel type. What was the key of it earlier? Just the travel ID. But now it has got the key saying whether that's an active record or a non-active record. Because now there is a chance that for a single record, I can have one record which is stored onto draft table and one record which is stored onto the draft table. Is active entity, when you save it as a true, it means that's a real record, active record. But when it's a false, it means it's a draft record that you're working on. Same goes over here. Okay, so these are the relations that you will start seeing over here. Now, if I just go over here, there will be certain properties which we won't be touching directly, but for your knowledge, you should be knowing that there are certain properties which are also going to get introduced. I'll just refresh this app to see what is a change in the application now. You see, I have just got one more drop down over here without me adding anything, editing status, saying if I'm creating something, whether that's a draft record or the record which was logged by someone else, or I would like to see the data by hiding the draft, or some a record which is a draft, but I created it, my own draft. Likewise, you can see those things. Okay. So, for example, I'll just go over here and I'll just simply say, I would like to edit something. The moment I edit, nice. Okay, just happened. But this particular path over here is wrong somehow. Let's just. It should have the full path. Okay, so I can see that, okay, this particular draft record was created. I can see this. I'll just discard this. Maybe let's just go from the beginning. Maybe I have not reloaded. That's the reason it was picking something from the browser history. I'll just go over here. The moment I go in this, it says travel ID and is active entities too. It means it's an active record. I'll just go in edit this time, and it will say is active entities false. So which is a draft record. I'll just say travel to, let's just say USA. I'll just say I would like to save this, but after some point in time, a draft will get updated. So maybe my draft, the moment my draft gets updated, you will get a message like draft updated. If let's just say before you get this message, you are trying to let's just say uh, go back, you will also get a pop-up saying whether you would like to keep the draft or not. At the same point in time, if you go over here, you will be able to check the saved version, that this was the record that's there into the active record, active database table, whereas the one which you are editing currently, this is the one which you have. Okay, and you will be able to go over here and you will say whether you would like to keep the draft or discard the draft, and you will ultimately be able to view all those things that you are working on, like an on draft over here. I can see these things appearing over here. Okay. At the same point in time, if I try creating a record, now here is the trick. Here is the thing which will start changing and the things which may start stopping. Okay. What you see over here is that the moment you went over here, your record travel ID, which used to be in a, let's just say, editable state during creation. Now it's in a read only. But you are just getting your booking information beforehand, like the one which you are not getting earlier. Now you are in a state that you can create it. Maybe I don't have object page defined, so I can just simply go ahead and view over here. But two of the property which I specified over here, I'll just simply merge this two things. Somewhere here, which I said that read only update. The travel ID should be read only during the update. But if you now visualize, you are actually in an update. You are creating record, but there is one record which you have created and now you are editing even without you realizing. You created a record in a draft table. Now, as the record got created in a draft table, system is considering your current activity as an update now. You see, I have a one record 141 which I just updated, or I can say tried opening in an edit mode. So that's there in a draft table, plus the one which I just started working on, it's now also in an update mode. That's the reason you won't see that particular field appearing in an edit mode. So what we can do with this, how this particular things can be fixed and how we should design this, these are the things we are going to discuss going forward, not an issue. But these are, you will be able to enable the draft capability. At the same point in time, you will be able to work on your header and the item data, and you will be able to work on it easily. Okay. So with this open questions, we'll close today's session. We will try to explore those things, and because the moment you come up with the limitations, the moment you come with the issues, then only you will be able to figure out the solutions. So that's the way we are going ahead with this right now. So anyone has any question on how to enable the draft capability, what are those actions, why they came into picture, the draft, how the draft works, why it has a persistency, how the locking and everything is working? Anyone has any doubt on that? Because now how to generate those key and all those extra other things which are there in your app, that's something we are going to cover in the next session. Are we all good? Okay, it seems we are. Okay, then maybe I can say thanks a lot, everyone. We'll call it a day for today. We'll continue in the next session and we'll see how those draft enabled application can be further enriched with this multiple capability and how we can finally save our record with the header and item finally. Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.